Today, we're joined by Liz Steichen, one of the competitors for Inspiration4, the Prosperity Seat, and the inventor of IVLO. Liz, welcome to the Launchpad.
Well, thank you for having me, Zach. I'm really liking being on the Launchpad today. Good place to be.
Absolutely. So I'll get it out of the way in case people know, because they follow me on Twitter. Yes, Liz is my aunt, but we'll try to keep it fair like we have with everybody with similar questions. But if I say auntie at some point instead of Liz, that's why.
We'll let it slide this time.
Sounds like a plan. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay. Well, like you said, I'm Liz Steichen. I actually, career-wise, has pretty much been mostly nursing. And so that's kind of how IVLO came to be. But I worked a lot with the critical care patients, so ICUs and ERs. A lot of the stuff that you're hearing about with COVID-19 right now and the really ill patients had been my focus prior to COVID-19. But those really heavy duty, very ill patients with a lot going on was kind of where my jam was when it came to nursing. So, and right now I'm enjoying time off and, enjoying being able to do some of this other stuff. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. So what is IVLO?
So IVLO is an IV line organizer. And if you've seen pictures on the news with these really sick patients, you've probably seen the tubes that come off their like IV pumps, and you're wondering where they're all going. Well, they're going to the patient. And that mess of tubes is what IVLO is for, because that mess of tubes is very dangerous. However, for some reason, as long as it's been known about, there hasn't been a really good solution brought to practice for it. And it's really not focused on. So unfortunately, it was a very difficult problem I contended with every day at work on multiple times a day. And it can be very dangerous for the patient, not just, the nurse, but the patient as well.
So it's been a known issue for how long? Why hasn't it been addressed, do you think?
Because there's a lot of known issues in medicine. To be honest, to err is human was one of the reports put out at the turn of the century. So back in 1999, and it was mentioned in there. I think as long as we've had IV tubing, there's been IV spaghetti problems. The thing is how do you prioritize all the problems? And I think they didn't look at all of the problems that were happening with IVs having anything to do, or maybe all being related somehow to the IV tubing, or how the IV tubing was being cared for. So I feel that that's a very big issue. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of turn towards it. However, we're real slow in medicine, and nurses are really finicky people. We don't like change too fast. Doesn't make sense to me, but it's true.
So before you had IVLO, how are you combating IV spaghetti in your ICU?
Well, you see a lot of creative resources going on. I think nurses can solve a lot of problems if you give them some medical tape, some tongue depressors, a few syringes, and some dark humor, and I don't know, maybe a stethoscope or two. You'd be amazed what we can come up with. Even IV tubing can, be used, but we'd like to actually not have it tangled up and all going everywhere. So, I mean, one of the things that bothered me a lot was the tongue depressor tape to the bed rail. It looked like an okay way to collect them all and just sort of tuck them in underneath that tongue depressor. It keeps them off the ground. Yeah, we're not letting it fall into the patient. That's great. You can grab the whole lot of them if you needed to. But the problem is that that bed rail is not free of any problems of itself. So if it actually released by accident, or somebody bumps the emergency release on it or something, it would drop with all those IV tubings attached to it, because they're stuck under that tongue depressor, and they're also being squished. So we actually can't regulate the medication administration. We don't know that they're actually getting the right rate, even if the pump is programmed for the right rate. So there's a couple of issues with that. There's other types of solutions like that. They use other things like touthettes, which are those little sponges for people's mouths, taped to the bed rail. Again, it seems like everybody wants to tie these things down, and I'm pretty against that. I find that to be one of the bigger problems. Half a cup, little like medicine cup, cut in half, and then they slide it over top. I mean, it's interesting. We can create anything. Give us time, Coban, and a whole bunch of stuff at night and some boredom. We'll make it something. But what we didn't make was a good solution, except for now we have one, because I wasn't going to live with it any like that anymore. I wasn't going to put myself at risk, and I was really tired of putting my patients at risk all the time.
So how big of an issue is it? Is there an idea of how big of an impact it is to patients every year, but also the hospitals? Because it sounds like it would probably have an impact on their finances if it's harming patients.
Absolutely, absolutely. The problem is, and you bring it up, like, do we have good numbers? The answer is no. And the reason why we don't have good numbers, and not to say we don't have numbers, but we don't have good numbers because it's not been studied enough. And I really feel like they need to look at this a lot closer, because it does feed into a lot of things. Well, what I'm not seeing them do is associate the tubing with the medication administration errors. So those can cost upwards of $100 billion a year here in the United States. They're not looking at how many times an IV is disrupted, or if it gets dislodged from the patient, we have to restart it. How many of those are related to IV tubing pull? So if it's attached to the patient and the tube accidentally gets pulled and it gets pulled too much, something's got to give. And it's usually the IV that comes out of the skin or out of the vein. If it's a much deeper IV, or what we call a PICC line or central line, and that gets pulled, now we've got to have a special check done on it, because it's put in under ultrasound guidance, and it's also very deep. It goes almost straight to the heart. So, I mean, there's all these complexities with that. But then we also have, if the tubes are dragging on the floor, well, they're getting dirty. And that's all we need, is a dirty floor to get bacteria to march their way up the tube. And they enter under the skin, because there's a hole in the skin. The last thing the patient needs is an infection in their blood. But that's what it can happen if it's unfortunately dirty. And how many times do we see patients touching tubes, or nurses touching tubes, or family members touching tubes? There's got to be a way of mitigating a lot of that. And I believe there really is. And I think IVLO does that. If someone would sit down and really just play with it for a little bit, I think they find out really quickly it's really everything it needs to be and more.
Is it a lot of extra work to use it, or is it something that's really simple?
I think a lot of nurses think it's going to be extra work, but they're not putting into perspective that they're not going to be untangling everything, and knowing that you go into it and they think, oh gosh, I don't have time to untangle all that to put it through this thing, because it's just going to cause more problems. And the reality is if they just put it on when they start putting up the meds for the patient, start getting those tubes going, it takes a split second to put it on a line. Honestly, probably less time than trying to figure out which one's next and where it's all going. To me, I can check a set of lines, 4 tubes in seconds, and it may take them minutes to find one end to the other, like they're supposed to every shift, multiple times. And when we're pulling tubes on and off, we have to make sure that we're pulling the right ones on, taking the right ones off, and honestly making sure that we're not crossing the lines, and actually, putting line A into line B slot and line B into line A slot, thinking we've got them lined up, but somehow they've gotten twisted. And now we're administering medication at the wrong rate, not once, but twice. Very dangerous, very deadly. And it does cost lives. I mean, financially, the 100 billion in its own with just medication administration errors is a lot of money. But then talk about litigation, the 7,000 to 9,000 people that die a year based on these kind of errors is unreal. I don't even have a guess. I couldn't put a dollar amount to it, and I wouldn't want to, because that's lives we're talking about, not other products. That's people's lives. They're priceless.
Simple solution is something that sounds like a pretty big issue that hopefully people will start talking about, focusing a little bit on the Inspiration4 mission. When did you first get interested in space, and how did you hear about Inspiration4 and get involved in it?
Well, space, I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta. So if you know anything, I know you do, Zach, but if your listeners know anything about Canada, really, the Northern Lights, I think, just draw you in. They're magical. And so for me, just looking up in the summer sky with very little light pollution when I was a little girl, and seeing the Northern Lights and listening to them crackle, they crackle. People don't realize that they make sound. It's just fascinating, and wondering how and why was this sky getting painted these beautiful colors at night, and it was almost like they're a secret and special, and because it was really just like that when I was younger. And I was obsessed with flying. As I got older, I wanted to be in the air and I wanted to fly. I loved the feeling of being in the air and flying a plane, and So, my parents decided that ground school would be great for me at 16, and it was. I absolutely loved every minute of it. So, I mean, I'll take a flight any day, anytime. I'll drop everything and go if I'm allowed to. But getting over to the Inspiration4, I've got you to blame. You're welcome. No, actually, I've been following not nearly as closely as you have, but when you realized, and I'll be honest with you, when you realized what opportunity it had attached to it, and we kind of hummed and hawed about it, talking a little bit, the recognition and the platform that it brings is huge. And the fact that it's also being focused on St. Jude's and the children of St. Jude's, and raising enough money and hopefully coming up with a cure for children's cancer, that falls right in line with my product. And part of this is for the prosperity seat. Somebody who has a product that they're trying to sell, and they put it up on the Shift4 shop web platform that's with Jared Isaacson's business. And, doing that is an amazing opportunity in itself. The exposure it gives, going to space would be a bonus for me. This is already a win. Being able to put up my shop right there and get this out to show the world that they don't have to accept that as healthcare, because that to me is scary healthcare, and I want non-scary healthcare for people, or at least in that area I can help that. But getting that out there and having people learn and find out that this is a problem, it helps them advocate for their own health as well. So it's not just for medical people, it's actually for educating people in general. Like, if they want to know why we need this, then I can tell them that, and we can share that, and it just makes people watch closer. If that's what we have to do, then we do it, right? Mm-hmm. But space would be a very brilliant bonus to the whole thing. Just my saying. So if Jared's listening.
Do you have any concerns about going into space or being locked in a, not a huge capsule, but quite a bit larger, obviously, than Apollo, with 3 random people that you met a few months before for 72, 96 hours straight, and you can't open the door?
No, I can open the door. They just might not want to go out, No, just kidding. I should say that. No, I don't think my careers have ever allowed me the sort of the pleasure of getting to always know exactly who you're working with and their personalities. That wasn't an option. I chose sort of a random way of going when I graduated nursing school, and I went into being a float nurse, which meant that I got trained on basically 19 units in 19 months, and I had to function as one of their actual staff nurses when they were missing staff or needed more staff. It was all random. It was always random as to who was there, random as to who you were working with. Your patients are random. And a lot of nurses that work on a singular unit always, they've got follow through with their patients. And I wasn't always guaranteed that. So one day I'd be working on one unit and the next day I'd be working on another. So I've got used to, being in situations and circumstances where you have to deal with personalities and you have to be capable of dealing with it and not taking it personally. And I think that's where being a nurse has helped me out a lot. I've learned that it's not personal. It's their personality, but it's not personal. And everything that somebody else does, I don't have to react in any other way than what's comfortable for me.
So Jared and Haley, who have both been announced for the mission, Jared is the commander, and then Haley in the Hope seat. Is there anything you would want to ask them about their story or kind of advice getting into, this industry or taking a risk?
No, because if I got to go, that would be all a part of the 4 days of talk, like pick their brains and learn all of that stuff about them. I mean, the little bit that I've heard, obviously I've heard quite a bit about Jared, but Haley, I mean, the little bit I've heard about her, she's got an incredible story. And I think it did not do her any justice to even try to ask about it, in such a short period of time here. And I'm pretty sure that 4 days in space will still not do it justice. However, I don't know, maybe I'll get that opportunity. Even if I don't, maybe someday down the line, the future will offer that to me. If not, maybe she'll share more with us while she's up there. So I'm excited for them. I really am. I'd be loving to go up there as well, but I'm excited that they get to go, definitely.
So what has the response been like since your submission went out? What was the first kind of week? We know submissions have closed and they're in the review process now. Now it's the patient's game, but what's it like?
I think the first couple of days was a little bit overwhelming, because you're competitive, I guess I shouldn't say you. I'm competitive. People are competitive. Entrepreneurs are competitive. We're hopeful. This is a dreamer's dream. Um, I don't think there's a single person that's entered that hasn't wanted to go to space probably their entire life. And on top of that, are entrepreneurs who are dreaming and they're trying to make their own dreams come true, including this lucrative businesses or whatever it is for them. It's been like the first few days was overwhelming, I'll tell you that much. I'm very grateful because I've actually been blessed by having you involved and you being able to take some of the hit while I'm not either not available or not there, and you being able to navigate through that, knowing my world very well. So it's worked out beneficial for me. I just hope everybody else has the same sort of support as I have, and it's been really fun because you learn that people are out there and they agree and they support it, and it's wow, this is really actually happening. That's pretty awesome feeling.
So you seem pretty passionate about nursing and the mainly the care of your patients more than anything.
Sure.
What words of encouragement would you have or advice to young people that are trying to find their passion or are holding back from taking a risk of maybe starting their own business?
Don't hold back. I mean, you have to be smart about it, and if it's something that's already there, what makes yours different, obviously. But if it's something that is very unique and it's individualistic and there's nothing out there that even comes close to it, that's the moment of magic, right? That's when you start looking at things and going, wow, okay, I can do this. But you have to, take your time, research things, understand business. If you don't understand business, take a few business courses or at least read a few books, and definitely reach out and learn from the best, take advice from people that have what you want in life, not from those people that are around you that don't have what you want in life. So if you want to be a millionaire or a billionaire, Jared Isaacman would be a perfect person to ask about that, and how did he get there, and really what kind of effort and energy and all of that kind of stuff, other than his genius and brilliance, but really what would his advice be? I think knowing that you have to surround yourself with people that understand and have actually been and are where you want to be and where you're going, instead of just every average ordinary person, then that's how you learn to get to where you need to be. You need to surround yourself with the right like-minded people, because they'll look you up and they'll support you. They'll help you. They'll teach you.
So as I said a little bit earlier, we know the committee's meeting. We know the phone call's probably happening within the next 36, 48 hours or so. Of who's going to get it, as they have to do the deeper vetting process next week before they kind of tell the world. Sure. What would you want to say directly to the committee on why you or why IVLO you would hope would be selected for this?
I think for me, sorry, I smile and it seems a little ridiculous when I say that. I've lived a life of many people in my short 40 plus years. I've done a lot. I've been a lot of places and seen a lot of things. It's really hard to have a bucket list that there's not much left on it, except for, excelling in my own life in different, more of my freedom and things for me. But things for me because I want them for other people. I think that's kind of a hard thing to achieve all the time. Space is one of those things where I just, I've never been able and not in the right time, not in the right place to make that happen. If you told me that I would even be able to enter something like this and the opportunity was going to be to go to space, I would have laughed at you last year, probably. And not in a bad way, but I'd be like, oh, I'm too old for that. But the reality is no, I'm not. And like Haley, I've never had to deal with what Haley's had to deal with, and I don't want to take anything away from that story. But I've come close a couple of times, and as a family member, I'm sure you're aware. You've seen the pictures in my video. There's a picture of me actually intubated and ventilated. That was about 45 minutes after they had actually woken me up from putting it in, and the machine at that point was breathing for me. That's a pretty surreal moment. And I don't know that there's a lot in life that can top that after, you go through something like that. So getting to space would be almost like a new start, a fresh start, something so surreal that I have nothing behind me to compare it to. It's just a new forward. And I would love that. I think that would be an awesome, awesome thing to be able to do.
So if nurses or medical professionals or really anyone is watching and they want to, pick up either a sample of IVLO or get it into their medical center, how can they do that? How do they connect with you?
Very easy, ivlo.org or shopivlo.com. And if they want to get a hold of me directly, it's liz.steichen@ivlo.org. So liz.steichen@ivlo.org. Any of that would work. And honestly, if you have any questions, we're not sure how it will work or why it works the way it does, or you're just not quite sure if it's going to work, or should it be even something you guys are considering, email me, call me. I'm more than happy to talk with you and see what the situation is and how can we help? Because if we don't have a good solution, then we better find one, right? The more people in a problem, the better we come up with solutions faster. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you would want to share with our viewers?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
How much time do we have?
I don't know. Right. No, I think just for me, it's been always, and why I got into what we're doing here and why IVLO is so important is because of being inside the bed rails as a patient. There's a lot of nurses out there. They're very young. They have never been sick a day in their life. I can't say that I was blessed with that kind of health. But I've had a couple of very scary close calls. And when you're laying in a bed with IV tubing going everywhere, and I even know what it is, and I know what's going on with it, and I'm still concerned, I can only imagine what it is like that for patients or any of the patients in the hospital, especially the really sick ones and their family. The last thing they want to do is worry about, well, are those tubings doing the right thing? Does the nurse know what she's doing with them? Is the doctor sure he should be giving all of that? There's so much to do with it. And I think even by just tidying it up and making sure that it looks organized gives a better sense of control of the situation to family and to the patient and to the nurse. I'm telling you, as a nurse, if I walked into a room like with a bench like that, it gave me anxiety. So being able to solve that problem for nurses is a pretty awesome thing. So, hey, and it can be used on the freaking shuttle. Tell me that there aren't tubes and lines over there that I can't clean up and organize.
Well, we'll get it up to the space station. Maybe Jared or Elon can help out with that.
Well, we can send them a box. Sure.
There we go. Well, thank you so much, Auntie, for being here. I'm so excited for what's happening with everything IVLO and excited that you were part of this and excited that you came on here to talk with me today.
Well, it's all because of you. You found out about this and you thought it was a good idea. And at first I was a little hesitant, but thank you actually for encouraging and pushing and certainly having me here tonight on the Launchpad with you. I feel like I'm very blessed because of the people I get to sit up against and have one of my stories being told. You got Jared and Ruben, and I mean, everybody has been so amazing so far. So I don't even know that I fit, but I appreciate you having me anyway, Zachary.
Hi, my name is Liz Steichen, and as a former ICU ER nurse, I can tell you that tangled IV lines have been the most frustrating part of my career. What should be a highlighted issue in healthcare is an accepted part of a practice, yet this practice is completely unacceptable. So while we focus on metrics like reducing central line infections or how quickly we answer call bells, we are ignoring a very real issue and have done so for a very long time. IV line entanglement has been understudied and is unresolved. We focus on the symptoms and solving those instead of on the actual problem itself. And by doing this, we silently accept an ancient practice that is completely unacceptable. And like good nurses, I solve it with medical tape, tongue depressors, mouth swabs, and dark humor, all while being completely unaware of the statistics that we participate in along the way. Now, let me start out by saying that this is not just the United States issue. This is a global issue, and it's been acknowledged since before the turn of the century. However, let's focus on the US for a moment. Here, it's a multi-billion-dollar problem with estimates into the hundreds of billions of dollars per year in the healthcare system. What's even more costly is the over 7,000 lives lost to the associated errors. That's a sobering statistic. Let's be honest, who would think that healthcare doesn't have a consistent standard of practice on how to organize IV lines, nor does the industry offer any solutions? That's where IVLO steps in. This is a patented product, and I happen to be the inventor. The platform Shift4 Shop and Inspiration4 competition, to me, is about way more than this exciting opportunity to be a part of the 4-person crew of the first all-civilian flight into space, which I must admit is an incredible opportunity and something I'm really excited about. However, If the opportunity to step into space brings about the needed attention to this cause and the opportunity to save lives, then we at IVLO are ready to step off this planet and into space to make that happen. We believe that every person has the right to pursue their dreams. And I know that there are many, many more people in this world that would like to walk among the stars someday. And like us, we would love to see them achieve those dreams. More importantly, we cannot wait to see how this moment in history impacts healthcare globally, alongside impacting the lives of children at St. Jude's and finding a cure for childhood cancer. We know in the future, many more people will have a chance to make their dreams come true. And we know that some of those lives will have been saved by these initiatives today. Thank you for this incredible platform. And thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this amazing journey.